Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues episode 126, turkey time, of course, Thanksgiving here. Yeah, the article in the description talks about how the wild turkey population of Vermont had actually declined to an extremely low amount. Apparently, what they're saying is that there were literally only a handful of wild turkeys that were sort of released actually right here in Rutland long ago, and that repopulated to the roughly 50,000 we've got in the state. I've seen some substantial wild turkey flocks. I just thought I'd, ramble about this for a minute. I've seen at least two different ones this year, because the one that I saw in the woods, I do not believe was the same group that wandered across our property on two occasions. I actually decided to give them a good scare. Like, I went out there and I sort of crawled behind the garden fence, just sort of peered out at them, and then, sort of took a flying leap and chased them as fast as I could. And it was funny, because, they make crazy noises, and they flutter up around the low branches and stuff. People have to understand, of course, and some people who are, like, urbanites, they don't get this, those big fat white turkeys that you see, if you go to a turkey farm or something, it's not the same kind. The wild turkeys we have here, they're brown and more scrawny. Some of them, they get huge. Like, you wouldn't want to fuck around with them. They'd probably do some significant damage. They could probably chew through your flesh pretty easily, batter you with their wings. Same as like geese or something. You don't want to fuck around with geese either. The big ones can potentially break a bone with their wings, so be careful. But it's good that we have nature here, because the article's right, a while ago, we're talking a little over a century ago, most of this state was completely deforested. A lot of the species that were in this state actually at that time went extinct. Like, we don't have wolves. Catamounts were hunted to extinction, although they are more or less verifiably back now. It's just they're more transient, they're kind of uncommon. It's not really a reproducing full-fledged population within the state so much as a looser, smaller population across northern New England that goes out further west. But they do, at least in a transient manner, they do exist here. Wild turkeys were decimated, along with many others. Some of the amphibian species. Certainly there would have been fewer deer at the time. Because if you look like at maybe countryside England and you see there are only these little like woods, like a few acres of trees, and other than that it's like these little rows of bushes and small trees between homes and stuff. That's really the nature that they have left in England. That's how Vermont looked 100 years ago. Virtually all of the low-lying land, we're not talking just the valleys, but even the foothills, was cleared off for farming. The upper elevations were at least partially cleared for pasture, for sheep, for cows as well, to prop up the textile industry. And there was an enormous amount of production going on in the state 100 years ago. Like, it was an industrial muscle, actually, for the textile industry, producing the raw materials and milling, lumbering. They were all extremely important. Northern New England was actually a cash cow at the time and was sort of the urban and, funnily enough, more religious part of the country. Whereas you'd go to other parts and it'd be like, there's still a bunch of woods, or it's like small farming. Here it was like full-on factory farming, early industrial era style. Now, of course, it's the total opposite. Now Vermont is a shadow of its former economic self. There's another story I saw. There's actually was it Rochester High School. It's got 2 students in it, the whole high school. Like, it's not long for the world. It'll be closing down probably any time now. Can you imagine if you lived in a community where you were basically doing online high school work or middle school work, and you still had a school there, and you were still expected to show up at least sporadically, but with none of the actual benefits? You're like, oh, there's one other student here. I wonder who my best friend is going to be, and who my rival is going to be, and who I'm going to date. It'd be kind of hard, I guess. It's a good thing that the internet exists, I suppose. Not exactly going to be a world-class education, but at least it's got a small class size. And that's what's happened to Vermont. But the nature side is very, very good. The one thing that you could never complain about in Vermont is the lack of natural resources or interesting animals and plants. Like, they've all made a recovery, except for wolves, which they still refuse to re-release into the state. We used to have a lot of wolves. I would say this, you know, I know it scares people, the idea, oh, there'll be packs of wolves that start ripping people apart, get rabies or something, which is, you know, it's sporadic, it's really rare. It's like, we've already got coyotes. Those are potentially, if cornered, just as dangerous, by the way, or if they get sick. Thankfully, we don't really have that problem. We've already got a bunch of bears in the state. Why are you so fucking worried about some timber wolves? I'd think they're more docile than the bears if the bears get hungry, or if you get between mama and her cubs. I think I would much rather deal with the timber wolves, you know, the ones that attacked one person every 100 years, unless they got a rabies epidemic in them, and then of course we drop vaccinated bait, so we don't really have that problem. We have a few cases a year at most. So that's about all. Peace out.